not about containing China or keeping China down. It's about holding up the international rules-based system that all of us have invested so much into over the last 75 years.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken, they are describing the relationship between China and the United States. Both nations have gone back and forth issuing sanctions against the other. One topic that is contentious, how Muslims are being treated in the communist nation. U.S. intelligence groups say the Chinese are committing human rights violations against ethnic groups, forcing them to work as slaves to the cotton industry and even committing genocide. China's president accused American leaders of interfering with China's internal affairs. He says the accusations of genocide are false. Joining us now to talk about a number of issues involving China is Chris Fenton. He's the author of Feeding the Dragon, a book about the dilemma for U.S. businesses that work closely with China. Chris, thanks for being here.
Hey, a pleasure. It's always an honor.
We've learned China is boycotting some major American companies. What's going on?
Well, it's interesting. It's definitely the day of reckoning. I mean, we have a war of words going on with propaganda on both sides of the Pacific. Obviously, a lot of it is focused on the Xinjiang province and the Uyghur atrocities going on there. And we've seen a handful of companies, some from the United States, one being Nike, but then others, H&M, Hugo Boss, and also Adidas, all wrapped up into this. And now these companies are stuck in a situation where they have to figure out how do they please the Chinese Communist Party on one hand in order to have access to that highly lucrative market, yet also explain why they're doing business in that market to all the constituents back here in the United States and the west of the Western region.
All right, so the Tokyo Olympic Games are coming up in just a matter of months, but months after that, because of the pandemic forcing the Summer Games to move, are the Winter Games in China. There's now global pressure about the 2022 Olympic Games that are set to be held there. What's your reaction on if a boycott could actually happen?
Well, I think it's going to be a really interesting 300 plus days ahead. I just had an op-ed in American Thinker this week in regards to the massive amount of leverage that we have in order to create some constructive change in the bilateral relationship right now. When you looked at the 2008 Summer Olympics, that was a coming of age party that China wanted to have go flawlessly. And now that they're in the adult stage of a developed nation, Beijing 2022 is really this fancy dinner party that they want full attendance globally and make sure that it is taken care of meticulously. So this is an opportunity for us to say, hey, there are some changes that we want to see done, whether it's on the human rights side of things, whether it's actually on the trade imbalances, but there are many things that we can pressure them to do over the course of the next 300 days in order to show up with our athletes there.
What do we know about the safety protocols that will be put into place when it comes to the pandemic and the Olympics in 2022?
Well, I can tell you from having lots of friends inside of the borders of the PRC right now is that they did have very draconian measures in order to cure a lot of the COVID issues that they've had. Because of that, there's also not a lot of anxiety in order to, among the populace there to get some sort of vaccination. So I think we're going to see a nation that's not fully vaccinated, yet will have very strict border controls in order to allow visitors in from the outside. Yet, on the other hand, they also want to have very good attendance by athletes. And with all the sports partners involved with the Olympic Games, there's major economic benefits and also a showcase that is involved with pulling off a perfect games. So it's a very delicate balancing act that they have to pull off there as a government.
Those Winter Games about 10 months away. Now, in a report this week, the World Health Organization said animals were the likely source of the coronavirus pandemic. Researchers say they'll continue to investigate every theory besides the idea that the virus leaked from a lab in Wuhan. Some, including Dr. Fauci, have raised concerns about the credibility of the report, given how long it took China to allow the WHO into Wuhan. Do you take this report that I was just reading at face value?
I don't take it at face value. I don't think anybody that considers themselves a watcher of anything going on in China takes it as face value. There were lots of restrictions given to the WHO and various inspectors in regards to access that they had to the areas where a lot of the sourcing could have taken place. I think a lot of the potential evidence has probably been destroyed or hidden. There's no way of really knowing exactly what happened. And now we're in the middle of this war of propaganda where the Chinese Communist Party is trying to place blame on other nations, and in fact, even talking about how the United States might have been responsible for the COVID outbreak in Wuhan initially through these military exercises and games that were going on in the fall of 2019.
Chris Fitton, thank you for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Love to come back.